I think Rocco Marriott is kind of that low 4-star type of guy. He's not that on the recruiting sites currently. He's not getting that level of recruiting attention. And we have been hopping up and down while he was committed to James Madison that, hey, this is a guy that should be getting Power 4 offers. He just picked one up from West Virginia. Hello and welcome to the Verbal Commitment Podcast here on the Kansas City Sports Network. I'm Kevin Flaherty and I'm here as always with my good friend Ryan Wallace. We're talking about the world of local recruiting from Kansas and Kansas City prospects to the college classes at Kansas, Kansas State, and Missouri. This past Friday, we went to see Liberty North's 35-34 victory over Lee Summit. A lot of talent on hand for that one. We'll talk about those guys. We'll also be breaking down our favorite under-recruited guys, players who are flying under the radar but might not be as college coaches start combing the region to fill out their recruiting classes. If you like what you're hearing, comment below, tell your friends about us, subscribe, hit that like button, or leave us a review, a 5-star rating, wherever you get your podcasts like Apple or Spotify. We have our own specific audio channel through KCSN on Apple or Spotify, so you can seek us out there. As always, we appreciate you guys helping us to grow and putting us in front of more people like you. Hey, Ryan, for the first time in more than a month, we have a local Power 4 school with a commitment.
Can we make sure that this still works first?
Yeah, let's see if the alarm works.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Oh! This is live on the air. I had not tested that.
You'll have to imagine the alarm. That's how long it has been since we've had the commitment.
There's a plug that's gone somewhere, so we will fix that. I apologize to the Tigers. This is live. We literally did not test this before the show.
Missouri added to its 2026 class with Hutchinson Community College defensive end DeMarcus Johnson, rated as the number 1 junior college player in the industry-generated 24/7 sports composite. When we had Hutchinson coach Drew Dallas on our show, he said Johnson was up to 6'7" and weighing in at 275 to 280 pounds. Ryan, what are the Tigers getting in the Hutch product?
Well, I think he's listed at like 6'8", I think, on his huddle. But we'll call it 6'7", right? But like, he is built to me. I was trying to think back watching his tape. Like, it feels like he's built like Missouri's DNs of old. And because some of their DNs that are 6'3" have played bigger than that. But then I finally found the comp that I think is going to work here. Darius Robinson. Yeah. Several years ago, dominant defensive end, a guy that they could slide inside and out, kind of depending on the matchups. But I think with DeMarcus Johnson, you're seeing a kid that, looks like an SEC product. You're going to see a kid that I think that they can do the same things that they did with Darius Robinson, but also a guy that I think at the JUCO level is already showing he's got some burst to him. He's got some great length. He's got pretty good strength too. Like, based on how he looks, Kevin, he doesn't look as much like an inside-outside guy like Robinson did, but scary frame, I think, to work with, scary ability to work with. Very much an SEC caliber player that I think Missouri fans are going to be very excited to get on campus sooner than later.
Missouri continues its trend of bringing in highly talented defensive linemen, and Johnson is the number 11 commitment in the Tigers 2026 class. Really quickly, as we kind of go through the news, I wanted to touch on KSHSAA releasing classification changes for the next couple of years. I think the main news peg here, Ryan, is that Kansas 5A, which is absolutely stacked this year, is losing 2 of its top state title contenders. Mill Valley moving up to 6A, St. Thomas Aquinas moving down to 4A. I'm sorry to 4A schools. That's going to be a rough matchup over the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, let's start there real quick, Kevin, because Aquinas going down to 4A, Great Bend going down to 4A on the western side. It's a shame for 4A schools, but again, I think you try and look at it glass half full, and we've seen when Aquinas was down there before, how long Miege has been down there, that it has kind of raise the bar at 4A. And so unfortunately, it's just, you either kind of come up to their level or, you sulk and cry about it. It is unfortunate. Look, Aquinas doesn't want to be down there either. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing is that, so hopefully though, in a different conversation that we've had before and we'll probably have again, to me, it's more about seeding. That's
Sure.
more important. But getting back to, Mill Valley going up to 6A, I think that this is something that we've all kind of been waiting for. And at the same time, I don't know that, I was talking about this on with Dion Clisso of Preps KC the other day. It's like anybody that thinks, well, now Mill Valley is going to see some real football. Like, they've been beating 6A schools.
Sure.
Like, they're in the Sunflower League. So if anything, maybe their road gets a little bit more challenging in terms of some of those kind of 8-9 games that they'll have to 8-9 seeds that they might have to play. Teams that will have already seen them once in Sunflower League play potentially. So, they'll have to beat teams twice. But, they're not staring at an Aquinas on the other side of the East bracket anymore, Kevin. They don't have to see maybe a St. James or Blue Valley Southwest. I mean, yes, Blue Valley Northwest is there, and there's always going to be, maybe a Free State, although they might move to the west side now that kind of the numbers are a little uneven. There are still teams there, but anybody who thinks, well, Mill Valley is really going to, get it now, I'm not so sure. The other thing, Kevin, I'm going to pitch it back to you with this. Going back to 5A, Mill Valley moves on, right? And I think on the west, it gets a little bit more exciting because you do have Andover Central now and Capon and Hayes is still there. So that's still pretty exciting. On the east side, though, you would have to think, no disrespect again to the Allen Terrells out there, to the Coach Orick at Blue Valley Southwest. There's still good 5A teams out there, right? But you've got to be chomping at the bit if you were Tom Radke and St. James, because to me, if you want to talk about an overall winner out of this thing from the standpoint of a team that did not move, it has to be St. James, because they've got to be licking their chops looking at what 5A could be for them over the next 2 years moving forward now.
Yeah, it's tough because St. Thomas Aquinas may be the best team in the state this year and is playing in 5A, and you have to play St. Thomas Aquinas twice. It's tough to play Aquinas once. It's even tougher to have to match up with them in the playoffs as well. And so with Aquinas moving on with some of the other changes, you wonder if Radke's going to add another state title to his belt or two over the next couple of years. They've got some good young players in that program, and so I'm interested to see the way that goes. And your point on Mill Valley is well made, Ryan. I remember standing next to you when a state championship derby squad took on Mill Valley up here, and Mill Valley absolutely dominated that game. Derby went on to win 6A, and Mill Valley won 5A. And so, to your point, if Mill Valley doesn't win 6A, it's not going to be because, 6A was just too tough for Mill Valley. It's going to be because, hey, this year or that year, Mill Valley just didn't quite have the horses that they have sometimes.
Well, and again, the one other thing that I wanted to point out is this is maybe not significant to the person that doesn't pay kind of close attention to football. Hey, teams change enrollments change, and this kind of thing happens all the time. But I thought this year in particular had some big movers. Like, we're talking about big programs, Mill Valley, St. Thomas Aquinas, but then also maybe some, if you're not paying as close attention, like Andover Central, reigning state champs, they're on the move. Cape and Mount Carmel, right now, that would be the number 1 seed in 4A. They're moving up to 5A. You even go down to 3A, and you see like Nemaha Central coming up from 2A. I think that is kind of a wave shifter, both at 2A and 3A level. So some pretty big movement, even if it's not a massive number of teams. The name and brand alone, some pretty big movement here for 26 and 2027.
Sort of apropos of nothing, but to wrap it up real quick, I've always wondered the schools that bounce between 8-man and 1A, you have to learn a whole new sport. And it's funny because Arma Northeast, who we've talked about before, I'm a Southeast Kansas guy in terms of living down there for a few years before, but Arma Northeast was at 8-man, comes up to 1A. Cherokee Southeast was at 1A, jumps down to 8-man. Coach Ryder over at Blue Valley Northwest played at Cherokee Southeast. They're now an 8-man school. So I've always wondered kind of how they do it, because it's not just, hey, you're moving up up or down with schools that have bigger enrollments. All of a sudden, you're either learning how to play 8-man because you weren't the last few years, or you're going the other way and learning how to play 11-man after you've been playing 8-man. So that would be pretty difficult as well. It's that time of the week, so let's go ahead and get into our Tacos for Life Player of the Week. Tacos for Life has a wide variety of options to choose from in their scratch kitchen and locations in 8 states, including right here in Kansas City Metro on both the Kansas side in Overland Park and the Missouri side in Blue Springs. And for every taco, rice bowl, salad, quesadilla, or nachos that you enjoy, a meal is donated to Feed My Starving Children on a meal-for-meal basis. Those meals are then shipped out to more than 90 countries, to feeding centers, care points, orphanages, schools, and refugee camps. It's a great cause, and you can help just by doing what we all know and love, chowing down on some great tacos. Every week, we'll pick a Tacos for Life Metro Player of the Week, and this week, we're selecting Kansas City, Washington, Savion Stone. Stone is off to a red-hot start to his senior season, completing better than 70% of his passes for 735 yards, and adding 329 rushing yards. Yes, that's right. He's over 1,100 yards in 3 games. Ryan, what have you noticed about the Wildcats standout this year?
Yeah, I think I saw somewhere where, in terms, at least on the Kansas side, he's the first player of the season to be over 1,000 all-purpose yards. So yeah, I mean, he is just rampant right now against these defenses. Here's what I'll say about Savion Stone. When you watch his tape, I think that he's a player that is, again, a true dual threat in every sense of the word. He's got, I think the polish that he's made as a passer is what has taken this KC Washington offense to the next level this season. I think, last year we saw what he was able to do a little bit with his arm, but it was more so, keeping defenses off balance with his legs. And I think this year we're seeing him bait a little bit more. Like he wants to stay in the pocket a little bit more, or he'll show the threat to run and then try and catch teams over the top. But he's putting balls, at least when he's got protection, he's putting balls exactly where they need to be. And so I thought what he's able to do kind of, on the run, off his odd, footwork and off his back foot and doing things kind of off balance, it's Mahomes-like to me, right? And I think the question for Savion and for this Washington offense is just going to be, what they can do, unfortunately, as things get later in the year, because everybody's going to look at the schedule and go, well, okay, they're doing it against this team, or they're doing it against that team. Like, we want to see what they can do, in a playoff-like environment. But, they've still got Atchison coming up on this schedule that is a very formidable foe. They've still got Topeka Highland Park coming up on the schedule. And here's the thing. I think they're going to continue at this pace, Kevin, because to me, when I watch KC Washington, this is the best overall kind of group of prospects, right, and talent that we've seen since probably 2016-17 Schlegel. And that Stallions team went on. They lost in the playoffs to St. James and Mill Valley, but they were 8-2, 9-1. Cornelius Ruff was on that team. Ivan Webb, Tylan Wallace, all guys that went on to play at 4-year institutions. Washington hasn't won 6 games in a season since 2004. And before that, you'd have to go back to 1979. And they have never won a playoff game. So I think if there was any roster that was built to shake up the history books at Washington, it's Savion Stone and this group.
And here is our Tacos for Life Metro Player of the Week. Savion, welcome to the show.
Thank you for welcoming me.
Savion, you're on a torrid start to the season, but most importantly, Washington sits 3-0 through 3 games. Why do you think you guys have been so successful so far?
It's kind of like it's mainly like just that team morale that we built up over the summer. Players showing up during the summer for workouts, staying in the weight room, conditioning on the field. That's really where it all started at, just continuing to put in that work and, and us seeing that it pays off during the season. It's like we seeing that we actually succeeding in this. So, we just continuing to go.
Savion, we've talked about your stats. I mean, you are the definition of a true dual threat for Washington. But I wanted to ask you a little bit about your passing. It just feels like you've kind of each year as a quarterback at Washington, you've taken progress. The steps have been made for you as a real passer, and you can run it, but you can deliver it vertically too. What kind of things did you do this offseason and maybe even going back to last year to really perfect your craft and get you to a 70% completion percentage and, putting the ball wherever you need to in the air?
Mainly it was like, just staying on that field the whole summer, obviously the help from my teammates like Cameron Fields, Darion Baskin, Sean Williams, Jalen Washington, all my other receivers that I got with me, like we stayed on the field during the summer, and obviously, 707 helps a lot with that stuff during the summer. So, continue to do that. I stayed on the ladder during the summer, worked on my footwork, worked on my drop steps, all that stuff, and it all pays off, as you see.
You get to throw the ball down the field a lot. How much fun is the Wildcat offense right now when you get to toss it up like that?
Oh, it's great. I like that I got my versatile receivers, to do that stuff with. Definitely like Cameron Fields and Darion, like them are my players right there. But obviously, I love my other receivers too, like ABR Sean and Jamari Williams. Like I love that I have multiple targets to throw it to.
Savion, I'm going to kind of tee this one up because before we started recording, I was asking you kind of about being a runner, and I was actually asking you about maybe playing defense, and you said, well, maybe not defense, but you said there was a part of being a rusher that you liked. Explain to the fans kind of what you told me and why that makes you different than maybe most quarterbacks that are looking for the sideline.
Like I said, I love to hit on the offensive side of the ball. My coach tells me, drop to the ground, but I love that contact, going full speed towards somebody. And it kind of like, I wouldn't say every quarterback should do it, but if you know that you got that type of power and that type of athleticism and that durability, I feel like you should take that shot and let them know how you feel.
We've talked about areas where you've made improvement over the offseason. What do you want to get better at? Like what's sort of the next step for you as a player?
Leadership. My leadership can be way better. Being more vocal on the field, off the field, in the classrooms. That type of stuff.
When you guys start to think, I know your coaches probably don't want you to look this far ahead of the season. One step at a time, but how much of it is becoming a focus now that, hey, we've had great regular seasons in the past, but trying to get that Washington's first ever playoff win. Is that something that gets talked about in the locker room, or will you guys worry about that when you get into, late October, early November?
I mean, we take games game by game, but obviously we want to win that week 9 game. It will be very special to us. And definitely, like my coach, it'll be very special to him, to have that W in his record. But obviously, like I said, we take it game by game. We got Central next week. Well, this week actually, this Saturday, and like we gonna take game by game.
You've talked about some of your teammates so far. We like to give players a chance to maybe shout out somebody who's getting slept on a little bit. Who's somebody on your team that people watching this show should start paying attention to?
You can start paying attention to ABR Sean. He just blew up last Friday against Harmon. Darion Baskin, of course, one of my best like dual players, that I can get the ball to. My linemen. We all love our linemen, Preston Portley, Landon Hensley, Jordan. My freshman right tackle Javier, my left guard Avion. Like I love my lineman. I tell you that, and that's where it all starts at. So that I love them guys right there.
I mean, I would imagine living in Kansas City and playing the position you do. It's hard for anybody to not maybe get out there and try some Mahomes like magic, but you actually do it on a regular basis. I mean, there was a clip I saw of you where you're getting kind of spun around. You pitched it backwards several times where, guys think you're going on the run and then you might just kind of jump up over the top of them and sling it for 10 yards. Mm-hmm. How much of your game do you model after Mahomes, or is it just again, kind of stuff that you're an improviser and you want to keep plays alive.
I would say, I improvise it a lot. I like to keep games alive, but I do watch Patrick Mahomes a lot. Like, them throws on the run, them throws off the back foot, them crossbody throws, like all that type of stuff. And I don't know. It's just like, I just like how Patrick Mahomes does a lot of things, because he is one of the best quarterbacks to ever do it. I'll tell you that. But yeah, I like how Patrick Mahomes plays. So that's I would say I kind of idolize by him. But a lot of people say behind Lamar Jackson. I'll tell you that because, that dual threat ability. But I idolize Patrick Mahomes a lot.
The buzz around you is really starting to increase, and I would imagine your recruiting is starting to heat up as well. Is that something that's happening? And kind of who are you hearing from right now in terms of playing at the next level?
A lot of JUCOs. I would like say that type of information. I don't know if it should be said or not, but like a lot of JUCOs right now. I got a couple little D2s, not little, but D2 colleges. I'm on two D1 radars right now. Like I said, like everything's heating up for me. So, being able to just flow through this process is what I like.
Well, being our Metro Player of the Week, given the way that you're performing, let me put it this way to you. I'll finish with this on my end, Savion. You get a chance now to use this show as an opportunity, right? And that's why we're doing it. So any coaches out there that are watching, listening, flipping on your tape that might be on the fence, here's your chance. Give them the recruiting pitch on why they should take a shot on Savion Stone as a college quarterback or just to get on the college roster.
I am the best quarterback in Kansas as right now. Right now, I am the best quarterback in Kansas, and I will bring that leadership. I will bring that my arm with you. I'll bring my legs. I'll bring my whole body. I'll give you my heart. I will love a place to call home, and man, that's really it. I'm the best quarterback in Kansas. I'm one of the best in the nation. I'll tell you that.
Well, Savion, as our Player of the Week, we'll be sending you and all of our future Tacos for Life Metro Player of the Week picks a gift card to enjoy the food at Tacos for Life.
Thank you.
We'll be right back on the Verbal Commitment Podcast right after this.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
I'm BJ Kissel, founder and CEO of KC Sports Network. Emprise Bank has been with us from the beginning. They were our first network partner, and they believed in the vision of what we were building from the start. I can't speak to any other banks or companies and how they operate, but I can tell you from personal experience and based on the growth of the network you're listening to right now, that if you have banking needs, call our friends at Emprise Bank. We've worked with so many great people there over the years, from Vicky and Aggie to Andrea, Lori, Jackie, Deb, and Aaron, and not to mention so many others that not just supported KC Sports Network, but supported our KCSN Foundation as well. But the best thing that I know is that if I have a question or a problem, no matter how dumb the question is, I know who I'm going to call and who I'm going to talk to. And I know that I'm getting an answer from someone that I can trust. And I know that person is there to help us. That's why Emprise Bank has always been and continues to be our partner in Possible. And they can be yours too. You just have to reach out. If you have a banking need, whether it's business or personal, hit me up. I will connect you directly with the same people that have helped us build KCSN. And that's our friends at Emprise Bank.
Welcome back to the Verbal Commitment Podcast. You can follow along with us on Twitter/X at verbalcommit_KC for clips from the show, conversations about local players, and even the odd highlight or two. And calling all Chiefs fans, you could be on the field at the 50 inside GEHA Field for the official coin toss at a Chiefs home game this season. Visit Chiefs.com/GEHA now. Enter to win a chance to be on the field for a once-in-a-lifetime view of the pregame coin toss. Plus, you can score other exclusive prizes. Enter for a chance to win at Chiefs.com/GEHA. GEHA is the proud partner of the Kansas City Chiefs. On Friday, Ryan and I went out to Liberty North for the Eagles' 35-34 win over Lee Summit. It was a terrific game, a physical contest with clutch plays on both sides, and ultimately the Eagles were able to pull out a big win. And in such a physical game, we came away really impressed by a pair of young linemen, Tavion Hayward for Liberty North and Will Seiler for Lee Summit.
I would say for me, Kevin, that, Seiler was a guy that we had previewed coming into the game.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of our first chance to see him in pads under the lights in this type of atmosphere. And I thought he delivered. Like, he's a player, we were able to talk with Chris Gomez, who's his trainer, and he's a player who I think is going to start piquing a lot of recruiting interest from a Power 5 standpoint. They're going to see his tape this season. And I thought he's always been pretty strong in the run game. And with this Lee Summit offense, you don't get to see him do a lot of pass pro. But again, that's what Coach Gomez is going to, work with him on. They'll get the tape for pass pro from a training kind of standpoint. But Kevin, for me, when it came to Seiler, and we'll get to Hayward in a minute,
Yep.
I was impressed with, the frame is what he says it is. I mean, it's every bit of like 6'7", 6'8", 300. And I thought the mobility and the footwork has come a long way. And that, to me, is what's going to get colleges intrigued. Is he going to be a tackle at the next level? Probably not. But I do think he's agile, mobile, definitely strong enough in the ground game to stick as a Power 5 level offensive guard.
Yeah, he definitely displaces guys right at the line of scrimmage when you look at the strength. And it's interesting because you have two linemen in this game, Ryan, two very different kinds of linemen. Hayward is a very different type than Will Seiler is.
Hayward, to me, was the breakout star for us.
Yep.
Walking out of that game, there were a lot of guys that played well. There were a lot of prospects that impressed us, right? Some of which we were kind of expecting to. But Tavion Hayward was a name we didn't really know a whole lot about. We come in, we see kind of a lankier tackle. I think he lists himself at about 6'5", 6'6", 270. He's more of a true tackle because he's pretty lean. I would imagine during this year he probably plays closer to like 260, but he's super agile. The pass protection is there, but I thought when they needed to pick up yards and, Coach Lehrman's team was in, fourth and short, third and short, he was a guy that was dependable in the run game. Like, he's still working on the strength, still working on kind of playing with a little bit better leverage, but I think the power, the surge that he can give and the way that he's using his hands is all accelerated. So once the body and the strength catch up, this is going to be a player that you're going to want to write down if you're interested in keeping track of kind of up-and-comers on the recruiting trail. Tavion Hayward will be a name to know. It sounds like Missouri is already kind of shaking that tree a little bit, but after his full year tape comes out, this will be a player that will be very coveted for camps and might even get, a winter offer or two.
Liberty North also has some really talented young receivers. We knew about 2027 Jackson Proden, and we found out about 2028 Mekhi Williams after we saw him out there on the camp circuit. Both of those guys are really impressive. They have a couple other 2028s on the come up as well. But a guy I wanted to mention just really quickly, though, Ryan, is a guy who used to be a wide receiver, and that's Carlos Clark. He's an interesting guy, I think, to watch develop. He's got a long way to go, but, when you look at the frame, you look at the way he moves, again, former wide receiver, now a defensive end. He's somebody that has a chance to check a lot of boxes for people as he continues to get better.
Yeah, I mean, a tough matchup for him, right? Because he comes over to Liberty North from Osawatomie on the Kansas side, so he's still trying to get his body ready. I think it's a massive step in terms of the level of competition, level of expectations, right? But the brief stints that he was in there, when it was more of that, we talk about it a lot with DNs, more of that see ball, get ball, and not trying to kind of occupy a gap, which was few and far between when you're facing a Lee Summit team that just wants to run it down your throat. You did see some glimpses. You get why there are the Iowa States, the K-States, KU, Missouri that are involved here. I think, as the game slows down and he starts to grasp a little bit about all the intricacies that come with being a Liberty North defensive end, then you're going to see him take off. But, for him, I wouldn't worry as much about what the tape shows right now. I would just try and get as much out of the season as you can, because I think where he's going to make his rise is going to be in the offseason at camps, when coaches put him in the position to do the things that he's best at, which is pure pursuit. And that's where I think, again, he's going to still blow up no matter, if he's playing a ton this year or not.
Good weights program there too. So, his body's probably going to look pretty different by the time he gets to summer camps. As seniors, we've talked about Derek Davis, one of our favorites, Trishun Daniil. Both of them I thought were very much as advertised. And with Lee Summit, they've been so banged up. And I feel like that staff has done a really nice job maximizing what they have. We've had Karsten Feeney on our show. We've talked about the Hatfields. Lee Summit only has one healthy Hatfield currently, but two non-seniors that really caught my eye, and credit to you for pointing out the first one of these guys before we even got out there. Drew Benassi and the tight end Max Trillo. I thought both of those guys really stood out as younger guys to watch around the city.
Yeah, Drew just plays. He's not quite as thick as he looks on tape, but man, he just plays hard-nosed, tenacious football on both sides of the ball. And then with Max, I would say on the Lee Summit side, he might have been one of the breakout guys that caught our attention. And it wasn't just because of, some of the longer passes and longer catches and touchdowns that he was making. But I just thought that he showed a level of athleticism that maybe we weren't expecting, because he gets kind of outshined in that department by the Hatfields and Feeney. And I think he kind of showed like, no, I'm pretty athletic, and defenses need to know where I am on the field as well, because I can take a 10, 15-yard pass and make it 40, 50, 60. So, yeah, he's definitely a name to know. One more, Kevin, real quick. I know I'm going long here, that I completely brushed over for Liberty North. Folks, coaches out there, fans that want to try and clip this and put it out there, please do. Kevin and I cannot get over the fact that Zamar Cheatham, running back for Liberty North, is not getting a little bit more attention. I don't care what the level is, but I want to say like maybe Benedictine might be one of his only offers right now. And I thought, yeah, he doesn't have the breakaway speed all the time, but this is a kid who's done it for several years now at a program like Liberty North. And I was just blown away at the strides that he's taken. We know he can run between the tackles. The strides he's taken, though, as a pass catcher, Kevin, he made some really, really tough catches. Somebody will get themselves a very dependable college running back here if they just take a shot on Zamar Cheatham.
Absolutely. And that was last Friday. And this Friday, we will be heading west, going to Lawrence to see the Chesty Lions attempt to get their first win of the season against Mill Valley. Lawrence has had a tough season so far, starting off 0-3, but two of those three losses have been by a touchdown or less, and with the schedule getting even tougher, finding a way to surprise Mill Valley would really go a long way for Jason Thorin building up that program. And Ryan, one Chesty Lion we will definitely have our eyes on is Kansas commitment Josh Galbraith.
Another kind of game where we'll see Galbraith more like a Mike. We saw it last year against Gardner. I think we'll see it again, but you and I have said that we like seeing him in that area because that's not where he's going to play in college, but we already have seen what Josh Galbraith can be kind of as an outside linebacker, like hybrid, stand up, whatever. Like being able to see him diagnose stuff, watching the game slow down for him, being physical between the tackles, like that's what excites me. And obviously he'll have a chance to do that against a rough and tumble Mill Valley offense.
Of course, Mill Valley has been arguably the state's most consistently dominant program over the last 7 or 10 years. And the Jaguars are off to a 2-1 start themselves, lone defeat coming in a pretty strong showing, actually, against Lee Summit North. Mill Valley's coming off a really nice win over a Shawnee Mission East team that both of us kind of like as a sleeper, and the Jaguars boast their own local commitment in Kansas State offensive guard LaMarcus Barber.
Yeah, I can't wait to see LaMarcus. It's been a while since I've seen him, almost a calendar year. So being able to see everything that everybody's been telling us, what you've told me about how he's taken his game to the next level. I mean, they are ecstatic about what he's become at Mill Valley. I know K-State is ecstatic to get him up there. Perfect fit. So really excited to see him and especially do his thing against a guy like Josh Galbraith, but some other guys on Mill Valley that I'm equally intrigued to see. Blake Jay is a guy that I think, kind of thought about putting later in our show. as an underrated recruit.
He was on the just left off for mine as well.
Yeah, like I thought about it long and hard because I do feel like his athleticism is not getting enough love from the college level. So excited to see him. Excited to see a kid like Max Piva that's been getting, some buzz around the circles of Mill Valley, right? How much he'll play in this one, who you don't know, because he's got a guy named Reggie Reese in front of him. But in terms of kind of looking ahead at what Mill Valley could have on the horizon, he would probably be a name to, and Hayden Heller. Obviously that's another senior name, but
he's having a tremendous year so far.
There's so many college coaches that have just raved to us about Hayden Heller. Oh, we wish we could have him. Oh, we wish we could make room, or this and that. So he's one. But yeah, in terms of the underclassmen on the come up, or not underclassmen, but non-seniors, Max Piva is definitely a guy that I'm excited to finally see get a little bit more touches, however many that may be.
Yeah, Mill Valley's defensive line has been terrific so far this year. Junior defensive end Larry Jones will be another one of those guys sort of to watch. And then just behind the defensive line, kind of mopping up whatever gets through those guys, I believe he leads Mill Valley in tackles. He's kind of a sawed-off kid. But junior linebacker Ryder Farley is having a really big year as well. So keep an eye out for him. It should be a great chance for us to not just see a couple guys committed to local schools, but also some terrific under-the-radar talent as well. And speaking of under-the-radar players, we're going to break out some of the local players in the class of 2026 who we feel are flying under that radar as recruits. More on those players after this.
What's up, guys? I'm BJ Kissel, founder and CEO of KC Sports Network, and I'm here to talk to Kansas City businesses. If you rely on technology, you need an IT support team that's not just another vendor, but a true IT partner. That's how I want to introduce you to my friend and neighbor, KJ Miller. He is a VCIO at ThrottleNet, the Midwest's highest rated and most reviewed IT support company. They've been in business for more than 25 years, helping companies stay secure, productive, and ahead of the curve. They aren't just IT support, but they provide data security, IT strategy, and cloud software services. They do it all, and their reviews show they do it better than anyone else. So if you want to hear about how ThrottleNet can help your local business, join the conversation with myself, KJ Miller from ThrottleNet, and our resident genius from KC Sports Network when it comes to IT, at least as he's affectionately known by us, Mr. Craig Stout. Click the link in the description to hear how ThrottleNet can help you.
This is the Verbal Commitment Podcast, and we're about to talk about some Kansas and KC Mo players that we feel are maybe a little bit under-recruited right now. But Ryan, before we get to our names, I feel like we should give a little bit of background, because we've actually been putting this list out for several years, dating back to our time when both of us were working at 24/7 Sports and covering things on the Kansas side. And we've had some success. I went back and looked at our 2021 list. Two guys that we mentioned, Jacob Parrish, who starred at K-State and is in the NFL now, and Mason Ellis, who is having a really strong season at Kansas this year. Neither of those two had any Power 4 offers at the time that we mentioned them. I'm not sure either guy had FBS offers at the time that we put that list out. Obviously, Jacob got the New Mexico State.
Right.
I think that came a little bit later after that list. But either way, we have been ahead of the curve on some of this, Ryan. And so with that in mind, we're stretching the list to include KC Mo guys this time. I think the guy that I want to start off with just right off the bat, because he did just pick up a major offer, but he was sort of the poster child for this heading into that offer, is Platte County quarterback Rocco Marriott. You know, he's a guy that I think both of us feel like is the best quarterback in the area. And when you look at that, includes Jalen Mason at Wichita Northwest, who I think is really good. I know you're a Jalen Mason fan as well. I think Rocco Marriott is kind of that low 4-star type of guy. He's not that on the recruiting sites currently. He's not getting that level of recruiting attention. And we have been hopping up and down while he was committed to James Madison that, hey, this is a guy that should be getting Power 4 offers. He just picked one up from West Virginia.
Yeah, the segment is called Under Recruited. And so even though he is on every database in the industry, it still doesn't reflect how good and how many other teams should be on him. Like, the fact that it takes West Virginia coming in to the state's capital city, and somehow there was some sort of connection there with Washburn Rural, where there was a West Virginia staffer that wanted to see someone at Washburn Rural, didn't know anything about Platte County, goes to the Washburn Rural Platte County game and is left going, how's this kid still on the open market? Like, where's Missouri? Where's K-State? Where's KU? And West Virginia comes in, but maybe that's all it takes is for some of these dominoes to start falling in Rocco Marriott's favor, because yeah, he's been recruited, but he's still under recruited because he is that freaking good. It's crazy to think. Who knows what'll happen if he sticks with James Madison, if he, takes the Big 12 opportunity out in Morgantown. But I love seeing this for Rocco because, again, hopefully it maybe applies some pressure to some other teams, maybe not even just K-State, KU, but like there are plenty of other like area schools, maybe not even at the Power 4 level, but still that should have been on the offer table a lot sooner than this.
When we saw him in the spring, the passing mechanics were so much crisper than they were sort of on the junior tape. And that's before he goes out to like an Elite 11 camp and runs 4.5. And the funny thing about it is how many quarterbacks run 4.5 and you sit here and can say with a straight face, hey, this guy's a better passer than he is a runner. I think that's Rocco. And so I'm excited to see the West Virginia offer. I'll be interested to see if maybe that starts more people kind of looking at him to see, hey, is this a guy that could fit us? Because I think he's that good.
Oh, I mean, like you said, 4-star, it should happen.
Yeah, I definitely agree. One of the guys that you picked that I kind of liked was a defensive back from the Kansas side of the Metro. Why don't you head into that one?
So Kelvin Parker III from Olathe North is a player that has been kind of on our spreadsheets, on our list for a long time, because he's been playing at a high level at the varsity level and getting some attention from K-States and Missouris and Iowa States for quite a while. He's been on the camp circuit. We've seen him in person as an underclassman, and we liked him. Like as a corner, there were things that we really liked. But the reason why I chose him on this list is because we know from an athletic standpoint, from the way that he tests, he's been good enough to get the eyes and the attention of a Power 4 level for a long time. But I think watching his tape as a senior right now through 3 weeks, being able to see him play safety this season is what has excited me.
Yeah.
4 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, a sack, an interception, 2 PBUs. He's everywhere. I think he's assessing things. You see him come downhill and he's being an effective, efficient tackler, mechanically sound. And yet SEMO, UT Martin, and Delaware State are the only 3 offers that are on the table. So again, this isn't a ploy of like, where are the Power 4s necessarily, but I still think that he is at least that FCS level caliber. And even if he does get, in group of 5 attention, there should be more groups of those level schools right now on Kelvin Parker, because he's showing you I'm a complete defensive back that can come up and maybe cover like a tight end or a bigger kind of contested catch slot type player as a safety. But I'm also showing you I can be pretty darn good as just a true safety that can come downhill and get in the box too. I've been impressed with what he's doing at Olathe North, putting out some really good tape.
I like him in safety too because you can't avoid him. When he's on one side of the field, especially at the high school level, you can just sort of say, okay, this week you don't go over that way. And with him playing safety, like you said, you're seeing him kind of all over the field. You said, where are the Power 4s? And I think that's a good seg into my next guy. And that's a guy we've talked about quite a bit on the show. We talked about him before he got any FBS offers at all. And that's Arlie Morrell at Pratt, the tight end. He's a guy that, and Ryan, you and I have had this conversation off air so many times, that he's a guy that when Ian Premer made his decision, you and I were sitting here like, Kansas or Kansas State should probably move on Arlie Morrell, because it felt like this is a guy who is a definite Power 4 caliber tight end. But even beyond that, it's the type of tight end he is, right? Like you have some different tight ends. You look at Drake DeBon, you look at some of these other guys in the state. that are maybe a little bit thicker, that can give you more in terms of a balanced tight end type look. Kevin Sullivan, obviously, who's headed to Kansas, Jack Oots, those guys are kind of your all-round tight end types. Arlie Morrell is a lot more like Ian in that he is more of a big wide receiver. He's somebody who's an excellent athlete out there, has great body control. And I think when you look at how much value tight ends can have in the passing game, Arlie Morrell is a guy that should have drawn attention and hopefully still does of Power 4 schools, hopping in to say, okay, this is a tight end that we can throw the ball to a whole bunch and can have a major impact in our passing game as he continues to develop.
Well, and right here is where I've seen him develop the most is, the physicality as a blocker. We're seeing him way more in line this year than I feel like we saw, last year at Pratt, where he was just kind of more the Ian Premer on the outside. Again, physicality as a Wildcat quarterback. And then you get to see some of the athleticism flash as a defensive end. I'm right there with you, Kevin. I'm surprised that there hasn't been more attention given to him from schools that are trying to pry him out. And this is kind of a segue into one of my next guys, but also kind of a larger conversation, even going back to like Rocco, is that there's a trend, and maybe this has to do with the roster sizes and things like that, but like a lot of players that have committed that, like, it feels like nobody's trying to flip. It feels like everybody's just kind of like, well, they must be happy where they are, so we're not going to bother with them because we don't have the time and the energy or the effort. And I think that there are a lot of guys that are still maybe not on the market, but that could be had if somebody wanted to, take a little bit deeper look into what their senior tape looks like and ask themselves, do we feel like we're in a better position to pull this kid away? Because I think they might surprise themselves and get one.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I say that leading into my next guy, which is similar to Arlie Morrell, Nick Ancio.
Yeah.
At Capon, a offensive tackle, 6'5", 270, 275 maybe. I mean, he's really put on great weight. And I think that when you look at his frame, like, there's still a ton of room for him to get up into the 300 range. Obviously, he's got his brother Will at Kansas State, who has, again, shown the blueprint of, like, the Ancios can do this. It's a very athletic family. And yet he commits to Tulsa on June 9th. No new offers. We're now entering week 4 of the season in Kansas, and he's put out pretty darn good tape, I think, so far this season. So I hate to, like, pinpoint it all on K-State, because I think, there are plenty of other schools that I'm just like, why are you not thinking about a guy like Nick Ancio? But it is hard to, when you think about the struggles that K-State's had on the offensive line through the first several games this season, when you think about, a kid like this whose brother's already there, from a culture standpoint, would probably love to put this jersey on, play with his brother again. He's going to work his tail off. He's shown kind of a good floor. The floor has been raised, and also I think shows a really high ceiling and a potential guy that can, I think, play tackle, which has been a place of very thin depth, it feels like, for K-State in terms of their development there. It's head scratching, right? Why K-State and others are not saying, let's go make a run at Nick Ancio and see if we can't flip him out of Tulsa.
Nick Ancio and Brody Litton were two guys that when you heard, hey, these guys are playing offensive tackle, you were like,
yeah.
And felt like that would kind of take their games up another level and really make them guys to watch. You had a K-State legacy. I'm going to go with a K-State legacy, but from a coach standpoint, I'm going to go with Evan Middleton, the linebacker at Manhattan. He was a guy that we saw multiple times at camps. We saw him here at KC Varsity. I saw him out at the Sharp Combine as well. And he's a guy that Ryan has a great, like, big-bodied guy. And then you see him move, and he can actually run really, really well. This is a guy that, is defensive end, and he's working out at KC Varsity at linebacker and doesn't look out of place. And you have coaches out there like, man, that guy moves really well. I wonder how he'd be as a defensive end. And you'd say, well, he is a defensive end. He's just out here messing around at linebacker right now. And Evan's a really smart kid, and he talked about how Manhattan was going to kind of have him drop a little more and things like that. And so he was going to work out at linebacker kind of to get some extra reps doing some of that stuff. But whether you have a system where he could fit at linebacker or you have a system where he's more of a defensive end, I think you bet on the football IQ. I think you bet on the athleticism, the way he moves for a bigger bodied kid. Evan Middleton is a guy that I really liked early in the process, and I continue to really like.
Well, and he's one of several that I considered as an under-recruited guy. Jackson Vikander has played tremendous for Manhattan, maybe a tweener, and that's why some schools are kind of waiting to see even more of his tape. Kamario Davis, another player that I'm just like, hello, where are any schools for Kamario Davis right now? I think likewise, I'm going to transition to one of my players on the Missouri side now that has an offer from Missouri Southern, has an offer from Central Methodist, has an offer from Missouri Valley College. Fine institutions, fine programs. But William Ray at Lee Summit North, I think, is playing at a level right now, from what I've seen on his senior tape, that exceeds, I think, the offer sheets and the attention that, for whatever reason, he's getting right now at Lee Summit North for the Broncos. 17 catches on the year, 289 yards, which is 17 per catch, 3 touchdowns. Kevin, he's 6'2". I think he's listing himself somewhere between 210 and almost 220. But I think he's getting hampered as this. Coaches are saying, we don't really know what he is. Like, is he a wide receiver? Is he a tight end? And I think they're kind of overlooking the fact that he's just a playmaker. Look how he snatches the ball. The vertical leap is like over 35 inches, 37 inches. Watch it again here. He makes catches for a 6'2" guy or 6'1" guy that you're used to seeing Ian Premer make at 6'6". You know, I mean, like, the thing that bothers me, I think, in terms of coaches for William Ray is, again, they look at the body and they're thinking, well, you know, he's a little bit bigger. He's not a separator, right? Like, we don't see the highlights of him running away from guys, but like, so there's still no role for a guy like that can still consistently pick up 10 yards, 15 yards, and occasionally, more than occasionally, break a tackle and then pick up some yards after catch, possibly take one to the house like you saw in a couple of those clips. Like, you have a strength and conditioning department for that. It's funny because it's like, well, you can see a guy that's underweight and coaches will be like, we'll just put weight on him. But you get a guy that might be 10 pounds, quote, overweight or a little bit too bulky. And it's like, well, we don't know how to take that off. We can't make a guy faster. Well, like, there are things that you can do that can make William Ray more the player that coaches might want him to be, right? But I think at the end of the day, even if he stays what he is right now, you know, we talked about it before we recorded, Jaden Doss, you know, he falls into that category. Debo Samuel, like, there are things that you can do where you don't have to be this electric playmaker, stretch the field, that can still make an offense very productive, very efficient. And I think William Ray, with his body, the things that he can do over the middle of the field, his route tree, should be getting more attention and more love as a complete package player at the receiver position.
I'm going to go the exact opposite way and go with an electric playmaker who is not getting the attention that he deserves because of his lack of size. And that's Dante Dixon. I mean, we've talked about Dante a lot on the show. We probably don't need to belabor it too much here. But Ryan, is he your leader right now for the Andre Maloney Award, the new Simone Award for best defensive back in the city? He's certainly in that discussion, right?
Yes.
Two-time first-team All-State on the defensive side. And, oh, by the way, last year he had over 800 yards receiving. And, oh, by the way, he's also an elite return guy. Well, what am I missing here? I mean, I get, like you said, like, everybody wants a corner who's 6'1", 6'2". I understand that. I'm not immune to that. But this is a guy that can play multiple spots really well in your program. I think you mentioned after we saw him in person, this is a guy you get into your program and you put him at cornerback because he's so good there with the instincts, with the way he jumps routes. He has such a great understanding of how to attack the ball in the air as a defensive back as well. If he's not working out there, or if you're thin at wide receiver, he can play college wide receiver. He's good enough. He's electric enough. I remember watching him in person, you and I just shaking our heads as he's shooting up the sidelines with the speed that he has. I think his speed has actually improved a little bit too from a year ago. And then if he doesn't work out as a receiver or DB, he can be your return guy. I don't get why Dante Dixon is not getting more attention. I do think that he's one of those guys that coaches, they'll see him in person, say, he's too small. You are overthinking it, because this is a guy that can play in multiple phases for you, play really, really well. And Ryan, how many times we talked about this with Jacob Parrish? Sure, you want a 6'2" corner. I want a corner who can cover guys. And maybe your 6'2" corner looks bright and shiny and everything else. He's probably not going to move like Dante Dixon does, or be as sticky in coverage as Dante Dixon is.
Yeah, I mean, I think we said it before on the show, but like, the legendary viral clip, we need more dogs. Dante Dixon is a dog. He's just a gamer. Probably the best pure, like, multi-position, all-purpose player in the Metro right now. Well, senior for sure. Befuddling, like you said. I know what it is. It's the size. And just stop overthinking it. You should be all over this kid. Just get him in your program, figure out what he is later, but I guarantee you he's going to stick. I'll stay on the Missouri side for my fourth player here, and I'm going to go with Callan Bomar at Kearney. You have Carter Temple that's getting attention as a quarterback. You have both the Beaver twins getting now FBS level attention as defensive linemen. You've got a program that has a ton of tape that was successful last year. It's going to make another kind of run at a state title again, we would presume, this year. And you've got an offensive lineman that is going against the Beaver twins every day in practice, who's 6'5", 275 pounds, does shot put, does discus. He's long. He's agile. I'm waiting on him to update his senior tape, but I like the junior tape. And a guy, again, that I just don't get what else do you need to, I guess, see. The pass pro looks solid. The run blocking is solid. He looks mean. There's an aggressiveness there to him where he finishes his blocks. Again, I think Washburn is involved pretty heavily, and there are some other MIAA schools that have taken some interest, possibly an offer there. And maybe that is the level that kind of fits him, but there should be more. There should be more MIAA attention. There should be more MIAA offers, if not better. And again, when you look at all of the other pieces around him that are bringing in coaches and bringing in that attention, I don't know how you don't put on some of their tape, especially like a Carter Temple on offense, and not go, who is the left tackle? And why do we not have Callan Bomar on our recruiting board?
Yeah, it makes sense. He's another one of those that just sort of jumps out. Like it does not make sense. And it's something that if you're a coach and you're watching this, you should rectify that immediately. But for my last guy, Ryan, I'm going to go with a little bit of a deeper cut. And I'm going to give credit to Parker Titus, who's been absolutely banging the table on this guy, and mention James Feaster, the wide receiver from Liberal. I love wide receivers who are basketball players. I really love wide receivers who are really good basketball players. Feaster's a three-sport athlete. He's a really good basketball player. You can see the basketball background when you watch him play. He's 6'3". He's on the outside. The way that he moves, the way that he can high point a ball, the way he catches the ball with his hands, he can go up and make contested catches, Ryan, but he doesn't have to all the time because he can run by some people. And I think when you look at the caliber of competition, I understand that maybe it's easy to say, hey, I'm not 100% sure what I'm looking at here. But I think when you see the basketball background, how good he is at basketball, he's got college offers in basketball. being 6'3", being that kind of wide receiver with the body control and all of those things. And because of the 3-sport background, this is a guy that's only going to get more explosive when you get him into a college weights program and he's only doing football. This is a guy that's only going to get better at football when he's only doing football. And so when you look at guys that should be, I think he could be an FCS guy. I know Parker would agree with that. Ryan, he's not really collecting Division II offers right now, and that's beyond it for. And I think he will, but at the same time, when we talk about under recruited guys, that's one of those that I'm not saying, hey, Texas needs to get on this guy. What I am saying is he is drastically under recruited for what he could be.
Yeah, I know. Well, and I love the tape. I mean, when you talk about how smooth he is, like. There's the way that he stretches the field, all the kind of burst and the jump that he brings from the hardwood, but like to be at full speed and do like a 360 twirl to like locate the ball and not trip over your feet. Maybe I'm just an old guy now, but like that was impressive.
I pulled a hammy just watching that.
Right. I'm gonna go stay on that track with my deepest cut here, and again, same sort of thing where I'm like, not only is there like not enough attention, there's virtually no attention. And I will give some applause to Butler County as the only offer on the table. And from what I can tell, at least on social media, the only school and program that's even involved here with Kason Parsons out of Osage City. He is 6 foot, 190 pounds. He plays quarterback for them and some linebacker. He's passed for almost 2,000 yards, ran for another 1,000 yards last year, and he's probably going to eclipse both of those again this season for Osage City. He's a 3A state javelin winner. He is, I think it was like at one point, a top 10 in javelin in the country this last spring. You see him passing. You see what he can do, making guys miss and running past guys, running over guys. And then, like I said, oh, by the way, if you're not, enamored with what he can be on offense, here he is on defense and coverage where I think he plays linebacker at high school. He'd be a phenomenal safety, I think, at the next level. But yeah, I mean, another all-state basketball performer. Like I said, he was the 3A state champ in javelin and among the nation's best at one time this spring with, I think it was over 200, plus 200 for his javelin throw. But I think the other thing that really caught my attention, and again, shout out to Cole Reif at Kansas Sports Chatter. We're giving a lot of love. We love all the other entities around the state and around the metro that help us to do this show better. But he had Carter Hayek on his show from Nemaha Central and asked him the question of who's the best player he's played against. And Carter said Kason Parsons. And he said his awareness of the game is insane. And the same thing stands out to me when I watch his tape. Again, if you don't like him as a quarterback, I think he can be the quarterback of your defense as a safety. If you don't like him on defense and you want to keep the ball in his hands, he's proven that I think he's got, again, the benchmark level as a passer, and then gives you that plus on his feet. He might even be able to develop into kind of a small school running back potentially. I just think, again, maybe it's with Liberal and where they're located, maybe with Osage City where they're located and who they're playing, that the tape's not as readily out there. Well, it's out there now. We've given you tape on this show of both these kids. Like the bodies are there. What they put on the field is there. Please slide into the DMs, call some coaches at Osage and Liberal, and get on the phone about both James Fieser and Kason Parsons. It's criminal that these guys are not getting more attention.
Some of these guys are guys that you've heard us talk about before on the show, though I did try to get away a little bit from some guys like Leavenworth's Davier McCray, who I feel like we've just banged the table for repeatedly as a Big 12 caliber athlete. I did want to put you on the spot a little bit, though, Ryan. There's somebody who just didn't quite make the cut. I know you mentioned Blake J, but somebody else, there that just real quickly that you're like, hey, this is another guy that had my consideration.
Several guys, like you said, that like Davier, where it was like, and we've talked about him a lot. We're going to continue to bang that drum, but we've talked about him a lot. But again, going back to what I said about a player that, well, he's already committed, and for whatever reason, we're just going to steer clear. But a player on arguably not named Platte County, the best team in the state, right, or in the metro right now, potentially the state of Missouri right now, undefeated, Blue Spring South, Blaine Marshall.
Yeah.
Go put Blaine Marshall's senior tape on and tell me, what is it, Augustana, I think, right now that he's committed to?
Yeah.
And he's locking up Karsten Feeney in certain weeks. We're going to see him again. It seems like every week he's going to be challenged by the best wide receivers in the Kansas City Metro at the highest level. And he is doing it as a cornerback. We've seen him do it as a safety. Crazy that people are not calling about Blaine Marshall, asking, Coach Wilmus, how committed is he to Augustana? And could we maybe slide in there? Because he's put out some great tape, Kevin.
For sure. I wanted to shout out real quickly a guy from my alma mater, Shawnee Mission Northwest. Trey Woodruff is really having a great year. I think he's an athlete to watch. Plays quarterback in sort of that flex bone that they have at Northwest. But I would really consider taking him as an athlete, whether it's offense, defense. Figure out how he fits. Figure it out, because he is a good player and a really good athlete as well.
Oh, Kevin, one more.
Yes.
One more. Not that we've already gone long, but to hell with it. And maybe I saw that he's taking a visit to K-State, so that's why it was on the top of my mind. But how's Braden Maivella still as readily on the market as he is? Again, if the K-States and the KUs decide they don't want to take that gamble on a player that doesn't have a lot of wide receiver tape and all that, okay, but where's Missouri State? Where's Tulsa? Where's Colorado State? Crazy, right? The athleticism on that kid. You talked about it with Fieser in basketball. Braden Maivella is one of the most dynamic playmakers in the entire state, has a college-ready frame right now, and it's like there's still something that he needs to put on tape. Wild to me. Wild.
It's definitely pretty crazy. He's actually gotten some looks from a few Power 4 schools that have come in and kind of kicked the tires, but like you said, when we're talking about these guys being under-recruited, it's not a lot of people take it as you're saying, oh, KU needs to take this guy, K-State needs to take this guy, Missouri needs to take this guy. A lot of times we're talking, hey, Colorado State,
Arkansas State.
Yeah, the guys, make these calls. And so I think that that's a pretty good list, though, for guys that we've liked before and are starting to have good senior seasons to keep an eye on.
No doubt.
And that should do it for this week's episode of the Verbal Commitment Podcast on KCSN. Thanks for following along. If you enjoyed what you saw or heard, leave us a comment or review, like this video, subscribe here on YouTube, or hit us with a 5-star rating if you're listening on an audio platform. And until next time, we'll see you on the trail, and take care.